And I just want to make a statement about Judge
Hippler.
I think Judge Hippler did an outstanding job in turning down a lot of the requests that the defense made. Of course, the continuance, no continuance. It's been 2.5 years. Throwing out the DNA on the button of the knife sheath. That was, what are you kidding me? So he was a tough judge and ruled correctly and using case law, because the first judge that had this, whose name happened to be Judge John Judge, he was like giving away the farm. And I was like, thank God he got rid of the case and, let them change the venue, because I don't know if we would have had the same outcome if we would have had the first judge, because he was a little bit way too lenient. And, look, some of the other things, his alibi, she wanted 5 additional perpetrators she wanted to bring up with no evidence whatsoever. He said, no, there's no evidence. I'm not allowing that, And then the fact that the perpetrator liked to drive around at 4 a.m, stargazing. The alibi. So he turned down a lot of things that could have turned this case in the favor of the defense.
That's fortunate, but unfortunately, there are judges that do the opposite. So, I mean, there are a lot of judges that bend over backwards for the defense because they don't want to be overturned on appeal, and so they will protect their record by being overly mushy when it comes to the defense, and and just make the job of the prosecutor so much harder.
Yeah, you look at Judge Lance Ito in the O.J. Simpson case. He allowed the.
We have to.
No, but just to sit there and think about what range of opportunity he gave the defense attorneys like Johnny Cochran to attack the police, personally attack the police, and in cross-examination. It's like, where are we? What planet are we on? The job of a defense attorney is to offer an alternate universe, an alternate reality, an alternate theory.
Well, another thing that the judge did was allow the jury to do a home visit, but first allow the lawyers access, where they changed everything inside his home. They made it look like he was this, this guy who was, was Afrocentric, when most of the pictures in his house and most of the artwork in his house was not. But they put all that stuff in to play up to the race of it. Right, the race. And that, that became a huge issue for the jury. And, to allow the defense to manipulate that jury, I mean, that was the most bonehead thing in the world to do. But that's a whole nother case.
Yeah. It's a whole nother show.
Jim, I'm so glad that your presentation in regards to the psychosexual nature of this attack, it really, there was no one else on YouTube or on broadcast television or any of these shows that came up with the same theory that we did. And I'm glad that you agreed with us.
You just cut this out. No, but I mean, how many of those people actually investigated homicides or mass murders?
None, but that's my whole.
I know. Well, that's the crazy thing. There's plenty of Crime Garage and I'm drinking and murders and all these other goofy podcasts that are quote entertaining, but they have nothing to do with reality. They're people who maybe they're great entertainers and storytellers and so forth, but they don't have any right, any basis to do any analysis. And that's the difference between them and this podcast and my podcast. Real Crime Profile is me and Kathy Canning. We spent over a decade working together in the Behavioral Analysis Unit at the National Center for the Analysis of Violent Crime. We worked as members of the National Center for the Analysis of Violent Crime. That's what we did. We analyzed violent crime, and we taught across the country and around the world. And we consulted on cases, and we traveled on hundreds of child abduction homicides, and sex crimes cases. Thousands and thousands in the 12 years that I was there. So the difference between that and, somebody who sounds good, on a podcast or who's entertaining is it's just hundreds of thousands of miles apart. And on best case, worst case, me and now because my first co-host, Francie Hakes, is now working for the Justice Department, so she can no longer do it. But Maureen O'Connell, who's a 23-year veteran of the FBI, and her parents, her father, her sisters, her brothers, everybody's a cop or a fireman, and they're all that. She is such a cop's cop. So she and I, we interview other cops about the best and the worst cases of their careers, and we also do analysis on cases that are in the news or in the media, because we want people to understand what really goes on behind the scenes, not this crap that people, just their theories or their thinking about it. There are certainly people out there in the show, Don't Fuck with Cats, for example, that there were two people, what was it? Deanna and John, I believe were their names. And they were just citizens, and they were pissed off that this guy was torturing cats. And so they dug in, and they were computer nerds, I'll call them. They loved this stuff. They went on Google Earth and they tracked down from a picture that the offender posted. They tracked down the actual location in Canada where he was. It was like they located it, and that photograph was taken a block away from where he lived, and they gave this evidence to the police department, and he was arrested. But that's that kind of work, that kind of assistance that crowdsourcing can bring to law enforcement is amazing, because it's why America's Most Wanted works so well, because they put it out to the world and they said, look, if you can help, please tell us, tell us if you know this person, tell us if you've seen them, that kind of stuff. I mean, they were able to, it was ridiculous. I think I'm trying to think of 12,000 cases that were resolved, 12,000 fugitives over 25 years. We re-upped that show, my production company, XG Productions. We re-upped that show, unfortunately, right before COVID started, and we got 5 episodes in, and we caught 9 fugitives in those 5 episodes. But then it got canceled because of COVID, which is a shame, because it's a really important show, and it did help. But I'm actually working on a new show similar.
That's great.
Just to let you know.
Good.
So hopefully that'll be up and running.